So we just had a summary. So in regression, the output is always a continuous value. But in terms of a classification, the output is going to be one of the discrete possible values. So we also call them as categories. So, so for a classification, one of the best example to think is to classify a mail as a spam mail or a non-spam mail. So it's a very classic example to follow that helps us to understand the intuition very well. But I will be showing a hands-on using a different problem statement, not like a binary class, but to solve at a multi-class level. But when we are running through to understand the theory, let us not complicate too much. So we will just look at sort of a binary class problem first, and then we will progress into multi-class classification. And whatever concepts that we are discussing, say for example, what we saw yesterday as linear regression, and what we are going to look at today, like both logistic activation, logistic as well as softmax, they have become the part and parcel of advanced machine learning techniques, especially deep learning. So in deep learning, these things are present everywhere. So it's very important. If you understand the regression and classification concepts clearly, then it will be very easier for you to progress towards understanding the intuition or the internal working of deep learning networks as well. So these are some activations that you would use in deep learning. So these intuitions that you gain from here will be very helpful. So what the logistic regression, so this logistic is a transformation function. So because you can think of it like in machine learning, everything is sort of transformation. Even linear regression, what we are doing is we are sort of transforming our input by multiplying it with the model parameter values. So it is transforming. So it is all transformations that is happening. Logistic is also a transformation, but this is the second level of transformation. Interesting that logistic regression is a classification problem, but there is a term called the regression associated with that. So there is a simple difference. So here for the classification, we call it logistic regression, but a continuous value prediction problem, previously we call it linear regression. The linear regression and logistic regression, if you see the term logistic, then you should understand that we are dealing with a classification problem. So, but still, why is such logistic regression name is associated? So we will be able to appreciate it once we understand the concept. Then we can very well appreciate this is how classification is achieved here. So we are first finding regression, and then we are transforming that regression again to a classification problem by applying logistic function. So this is the intuition. And in terms for classification problem, one important concept to remember, keep in mind, is that machine learning models always takes numbers as input and gives numbers as output. And if we ask for this classification problem, is our model straight away giving discrete output values, or are we interpreting some continuous values to a discrete output value? Is an interesting thing to remember, to point out. So what we will do is that in a classification problem, what we usually get is a probability. And these probabilities are again interpreted as class labels, the discrete possible output. Probabilities are continuous value. It's a continuous value between 0 and 1. So all classification models mostly gives the probability, and then we interpret this probability to assign a class label. This is how it happens. Even in deep learning also, this is what happens. So it will give out probabilities for various classes, and then we pick the class based on the probability. So this is a sort of an universal idea that we use for classification. So probability is involved to narrow down to a specific class. So what we are doing here, this is a multivariate linear regression. We call it multivariate because we have multiple inputs and we are performing a transformation. So what we are doing here is, or what is y hat? This is nothing but it is a weighted sum of the input. So that is another way of interpreting this equation. Weighted sum of the input. X1, X2 up to Xn, they are input. We are applying some or we are scaling them. So that is why we call it as weighted sum. So theta 1 times x1, theta 2 times x2. So these are weighted values and these are the sums. So it is a weighted sum. So this is one level of transformation we are applying to the inputs. So this is nothing but regression. So that is what this regression part that we are talking about. And to transform this into a classification problem, what we do is that we apply another level of transformation to this equation. So this is y hat. Yesterday we saw this expansion can be compactly written as theta transpose x. So this is the vector representation. So this is the regression value. So theta transpose x is nothing but a regression value. On to that regression value, we are applying another level of transformation showing here as sigma. So this function has two names. Either you call it as a sigmoid function or you can call it as a logistic function. Both are same. And what it does, this transformation, we interpret that as probability. So we get a regression. To that regression value, we apply another level of transformation, which is called as sigmoid or logistic function, and that is interpreted as probability. So now we can ask, what is the definition for this sigmoid function or logistic function? So you just in simple terms, you think of it like you can either call this as a sigmoid function or you can call it as a logistic function. So now the definition for logistic function is this. Sigma, it takes a value as argument t, then the expansion is 1 by 1 plus e power minus t. So this is how logistic or sigmoid activation is evaluated. And now if you put various values of t and the output value is plotted, you will see a graph looking like this. So many a times people comment it like an S-shaped graph that we are seeing here. But this S-shaped graph appears for many other functions as well. Even for hyperbolic tangent, it also looks like that, only the scale changes. But that is what sometimes they say, call it like sigmoid, but there is no close relevance to that. So you can call it sigmoid or logistic. An important thing to notice here from this graph is that when the value of this input to the sigmoid function is 0, what we get 1 by 1 plus e power 0. So then that is going to be 1. So it is 1 by 1 plus 1, which is 1 by 2, which is half, which is 0.5. So when t is equal to 0, we get 0.5, this value. As you increase the value of t, the sigmoid output value increases, and then what we notice is that beyond a certain value, it upper bounds to 1. So no matter what you do, these values output will not go beyond 1. And at the same time, as you decrease t, you will see that the value is coming down, and then it lower bounds to 0. No matter how small the value of t is, it will never give you a negative value. It will sort of upper bounds to 0. That means it will be closely equal to 0. So if we analyze the output range of sigmoid function, it is bounded between 0 to 1. Here it is upper bounded to 1, here it is lower bounded to 0. Since the output value of the sigmoid is constrained within 0 to 1, we interpret the output of sigma as probability values, because probability also ranges between 0 to 1. So the output of sigmoid function is interpreted as a probability. So this is an essential intuition to remember. And coming to how do we find the best values of theta for a classification problem? So let us assume we have a classification problem like classifying a mail as a spam mail or a non-spam mail. So let us assume a binary classification problem like that, and how logistic regression handles it. Given an input mail, how does it handles and makes a decision whether it is a spam or a non-spam email. So you have these probabilities estimated, and we are applying a threshold to the probabilities. So if the probability value is less than 0.5, then we put a discrete output value 0. If the probability value is greater than or is equal to 0.5, then we assign a value 1. So now you can see the output, this y hat that we are representing here, is a discrete possible set of values. We only have two possible output values, 0 or 1. But how do we arrive at 0 or 1? That is arrived by applying a threshold to the probability value that we are getting. So here we are getting, what we are doing here is that we are splitting it into half. If the probability is less than 5, then we assume, say for example, 0 means not a spam. 1 means it is a spam email. So if the probability happens to be less than 0.5, we will always assume that the email is not a spam. Otherwise, we assume it as a spam. So now, what should we minimize here? So in terms of a regression problem, what we saw is that we were having different straight lines that is sort of trying to best represent the point cloud. So we were looking at that straight line for which the error, the total average error is minimum. So there we were able to estimate some distance. But in a classification problem, what should we try to minimize? So there we were trying to minimize a distance, but here there is no concept of a distance per se that we can estimate. But when we come to classification problems, what should be the objective? What should we minimize? Can anyone comment about that? What should we minimize in a classification problem? Conceptually. I'm not asking the equation, but conceptually, what should be minimized in a classification problem?
Difference between the predicted value and the output.
So boundary condition.
I think the standard deviation.
Standard deviation. No, I'm just saying it's a
The
simple
difference between two classes.
Sir, classification between the classes, class A or class B?
Yeah, so can you just put it in an appropriate name? What should we minimize in terms of minimizing? What should we minimize?
Okay.
Is it a mean square error?
Mean square error. That is mostly used in regression, but conceptually, what should we minimize in a classification problem?
So distance between two classes.
Distance between two classes should be minimized, then that is a problem, right? So we should actually make it large. So in terms of minimization.
Oh, sorry, minimization, sorry.
Yeah, so in terms of minimization, what should we minimize?
Error.
Error.
Prediction.
What error is? How do we call that error?
The prediction error.
Prediction error. Okay, so that's the answer. So we can call it as a classification error. So the classification error should be minimized. That means a spam mail should not be wrongly classified as a non-spam, and the other way around. A non-spam should not be wrongly classified as a spam mail. So this is the error that we should minimize. So now it is easy to say classification error should be minimized, but how do we quantify such classification errors is a challenging thing. So we have come up with an objective function for classification problem, the cost function.
Sir, can you explain once again, what we are doing in the classification?
So given the input sample, we have to say which class it belongs to. Whether it belongs to 0 or whether it belongs to 1. And that decision is taken based on the probability value. So these, we have to minimize the error in classifying.
Achha, we are minimizing the error, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
So here the classification error has to be quantified. So we use an expression. So this is either called as, some literatures, they refer to this as negative log likelihood error. And in some places they represent it as the cross entropy error. Both are the same. So this is something referred to as cross entropy error function. And one thing to, as a quick rule, one thing to remember is that for classification problems, predominantly we use cross entropy as the objective function. And for regression problems, we use mean squared error as the objective function. So this is the prominent cost functions. And the regression and classification are the two important types of machine learning problems that we see. And especially for supervised learning scenario, because only in a supervised learning scenario we can estimate the errors more prominently. So these are the two functions. And now we will just try to understand the what is this mathematical equation is capturing. But this is the function that we are minimizing. And here you can also see that the cross entropy function is represented using j of theta. So this notation j of theta is used. You can even use it for mean squared error as well. It is not wrong to use it. This is just a generic notation to say this is our objective function or cost function. And this j is specifically standing for the Jacobian. So we are going to solve it based on the first order derivative. So that is the intuition there. So, so in this particular expression for this cross entropy, there is no closed form solution like what we saw for mean square error. But the error surface of a cross entropy function is also mathematically a convex function, and so gradient descent approach can be used to solve for it. So now to interpret this, how it is quantifying misclassification. So let's try to just look at it. So if we assume label 1 for spam and 0 for non-spam. So let us take that assumption. And now the question is, what is the best probability for a mail to be a spam mail or to get the label as 1? What should be the best probability? Can anyone answer that? 1. 1. So even the probability, because the probability upper bounds to 1, and if the probability is 1, that is anyway greater than or equal to 0.5, so we will assume the label as 1. So if we put the probability as 1, that is perfectly fine for a spam mail. So if we just feed that into this equation, this y is the actual label of the sample, the true label of the sample. And whatever this p hat we are getting here is just probability. So that is used to quantify the classification error. So now what happens? So the original.
So what is log 0 then? So if p hat becomes equal to 1, as log 0 is undefined.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll come to that. So now the probability, this is the best probability. So what I wanted to say is intuitively what is this cross entropy function is calculating, or what is it capturing? So that is what we are trying to understand here. So the best probability to classify a mail as a spam is probability 1. And let us put that in this equation. The actual label of the sample is 1. So this is the ground truth label that we already know. So let us put that here. Well, let us feed in these values in this equation. Let us assume for the first sample, we are feeding it. So y is 1. This is the actual label. The log of 1. So we are putting this probability log of 1. And here we have 1 minus the y label is 1 and log of 1 minus 1. So now what happens is that since you have this term 0, anyway this factor is removed. We no longer consider this. And we have 1 times log 1. And log 1 is 0. So what we essentially do, 1 times 0, we end up with 0. So this entire expression becomes 0. And what we should understand when the value we get here as 0 is that there is no uncertainty in terms of making this classification. So cross entropy is a measure of uncertainty. So it is capturing the uncertainty in making decisions. When we say we make a decision with probability is equal to 1, it means that we are 100% confident that the mail is a spam mail. So in that scenario, there is no uncertainty at all. So if the certainty is or the confidence is high, the uncertainty will be low. So that is how it is related. So we are here we are having 100% confidence, so the uncertainty is low. But let us assume instead of probability as 1, what if the probability was 0.8? If the probability was 0.8, we would still assume that the label is a spam mail, because anything with probability greater than or equal to 0.5, we would always assign the label 1. The actual label is also 1. If you just plug it in this equation, then here you have to put log of 0.8, and that is 1 times minus 0.22. So here we are looking at a natural logarithm. So it is 0.22. And here is a negative, and in this cross entropy equation, there is also a negative involved here. So this negative and negative, it will become positive, and so finally you get 0.22. So now we ask the question, what is this 0.22? This is estimated by this cross entropy function. What is cross entropy capturing? It is capturing uncertainty. So we have some uncertainty value captured. Why do we have that uncertainty? Because we were not 100% confident when we were making the decision, because the probability was 0.8. This means we were not 100% sure. So, but we are only sort of 80% sure. So some uncertainty is there. So that is the uncertainty we are capturing here using the cross entropy function. So what are we trying to do? We should minimize the uncertainty. Trying to minimize uncertainty means maximizing the confidence in making the decisions or in making the right decisions. So that is what essentially happens. Let us take the other extreme.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me,
Yes.
Dr. Ram.
Yes.
Sir, you said uncertainty is 22%, and the probability of
It is
assuring
not
is
here.
80
Here it
already.
is not
So it is
percent.
not
It is
total
not percent.
100.
No, it is not percent in terms of cross entropy. There is no concept of percentage.
Okay,
It's a value.
sir, but still, okay, so even if we are considering it as a normal discrete value, since 0.8 plus 0.22 will be greater than 1, no?
Man, that
It
is what
should be
I am
bounded.
saying. It is not to be understood like a percentage or bounded between 0 to 1. There is no
Okay,
relation that you add these two, you will get 100% confidence. That is not the case. Here you are not 100% confident, so you are capturing some uncertainty. So this is some quantification of uncertainty, and you always want to
so
try to
just to,
minimize this. Is that clear?
okay, sir. Yeah, sir, just to
Yes.
value it is. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. Just to quantify. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So now coming
Hello,
to
hello, excuse me, sir.
yes.
Excuse me, sir, there is one doubt, sir. So, like, if we are saying like the predicted value that P is, is a 0.8, is a probability, okay? So, we can directly say na, ki if P is greater than equal to 0.5, then it belongs to a particular class. So, why we are making all these things? We are try to find 0.22. What it indicate actually, because we already can directly say if p that is the probability, you say it's greater than 0.5, so we can take one category, one class. So what this j theta function is contributing? I'm not getting this actually.
So this, so that is another question that I wanted to ask after this. So now this P, how do we estimate P? The P is estimated based on these theta values.
Yes, yes, sir.
And these theta values, our task is to find the best values of theta. So in this objective function here, we don't see any theta values here. But where is theta? This theta is implicitly calculated for this probability, theta times.
Okay.
So what are we trying to do is that we want to adjust the values of theta such that the decisions we make, the uncertainty is minimized. So we keep on updating this theta. So that is why this is important. So how do we even get, so we need to get some probability values for spam mail and non-spam mail. Is that clear?
Actually, sir, I am not getting which step is we are following prior to this. Yani if we are getting it already calculated p equal to 0.8, so this what this j theta function makes sense. Either we can say j theta should be prerequisite of we are before getting this p equal to 0.8. Then I am getting okay before taking final decision. We try to minimize the uncertainty. Okay, so that actually makes sense. I'm not getting how this both term are we are interpreting like first what we should do first. First, initially we should find the cost function or we should find the probability. Because if we have probability, then we can find no sir ki, okay, on the basis of this probability we can say ki the this instance is is more inclined towards the class 1. If we have probability, probability based we are taking a decision. So how it makes sense ki we are trying to make uncertainty. Probability we have found, actually you have calculated this is the probability. So
Yeah.
how this making contributing and adding value this cost function.
So this probability was estimated based, so the factor involved was these theta values, the parameter.
Yes sir. Okay sir.
So what we are saying is that we need to tune and find those set of theta values that gives us the probability greater than 0.5 for spam mails and less
Yeah.
than 0.5 for non-spam mails.
Okay.
Initially, we start with some random values for theta, and there is no guarantee that for a spam mail, the probability will be greater than 0.5. There is no guarantee initially.
Okay sir.
So what we are doing is that for maybe initially for some random values of theta, we would end up with a very high uncertainty.
Okay.
So then what we have to do, so maybe our spam mail is a spam mail, but the probability will be 0.3 and we would be classifying it as a non-spam because the theta values were not appropriate. Then we would get high uncertainty value because we are making wrong classification. And then what we will do for the task of minimizing these cross entropy, we would again update this theta such that for a spam mail, it will always give probability as greater than 0.5. And it is not enough to be greater than 0.5, it should push towards the best probability. So we have to find the set of theta values such that the probability that it gives for a spam mail is always close to 1. In that case, we can always make our decision with high confidence.
Okay sir, fine.
So that is what it is trying to optimize.
Okay, thank you sir.
Yes. So in case of spam, non-spam email, what is the best probability? That means no uncertainty at all. What is the best probability for non-spam email?
The probability is equal to 0.
Good. Probability is equal to 0. So if we put probability as 0, then we are 100% confident that the mail is a non-spam email. So if we put probability as 0 and the actual sample is non-spam and we put it inside this equation, since y is 0, so this term will anyway go away. So here we have 1 minus 0 and log of 1 minus 0. So 1 times 0, which is 0. So this means we were 100% confident that our mail was a non-spam email. So there is no uncertainty involved at all. But what if the probability was 0.2? It will still be classified as non-spam, but we were not 100% confident. So it has to capture some uncertainty, right? So we will capture some uncertainty. So what we are essentially trying to do is that we start with random values of theta, that is theta 0, theta 1, theta 2, and etc. We start with random values and we keep on updating the theta such that these cross entropies uncertainty is minimized. So by minimizing uncertainty, we are adapting the values of theta such that it pushes the model to make the decision with the best confidence as possible. For spam mail, it pushes the probability towards 1, and for non-spam mail, it pushes the probability towards 0. So that is what we are trying to achieve by minimizing the cross entropy function. Since there is no analytic solution, but it is a convex function mathematically, so gradient descent approach can be used to find the best theta values. And this theta is involved within this probability. So we keep on adjusting the theta values such that we are minimizing the cross entropy error. So here we only have one set of theta values to solve for, but when we, as one of the participants asked previously, so when we get into hierarchical representation learning, in deep learning, we have joint contribution parameters. So that is where you have some issues in terms of reproducing the best solutions every time. Is that clear so far? Any clarifications needed in terms of understanding the intuition behind what is cross entropy trying to do? It is trying to capture uncertainties, and we wanted to minimize the uncertainty. So we need to find the theta values such that it minimizes the uncertainty in making the classifications for the training sample. So if you have 80 emails, so it is trying to adjust the values of theta such that all those 80 training emails are classified correctly. It is trying to classify them correctly. So this is done for the training samples, 80% training emails. Is that clear? Any questions? And whatever we are estimating here in some textbooks, we will see that this is referred to as logits. Some places they refer this probability value as logit, L-O-G-I-T, and that is nothing but the regression value. But that regression value is sometimes referred to as logit in some textbooks. So now, this logistic regression or this activation function that we are doing, so by thresholding this probability with 0.5, we are limited to only making binary decisions like 0 or 1. So in case of a spam or non-spam classification, that is okay because you only have 2 classes. But what if your problem has more than 2 classes? That is multi-class scenario. Say for example, the email has to be, say for example, when you are opening your Gmail account, you would see that there are 3 tabs in the home page of Gmail. So there you have a primary inbox tab, that is what defaultly highlighted. And then you have a social media tab, you have a promotion tab. So there are these 3 tabs. So how does an incoming email, the decision to be taken to put in one of these 3 possible classes, whether it is a primary inbox or whether it is a social media or whether it is a promotion mail. In that case, we are having multi-class classification. That cannot be solved using logistic regression because here the idea is to threshold it based on this 0.5. So there is a natural extension of logistic regression for multi-class classification problem, and that is referred to as softmax regression. So softmax regression is nothing but extension of logistic regression for multi-class classification problem. So the only difference, the important difference will be, it will also be using cross entropy function, and the way we are estimating the probability, the logistic function slightly differs, and we are going to trying to understand how that probability is interpreted for multi-class classification problem. And that this interpretation that we are going to look at will also be helpful for you if when you attend deep learning based lectures later for classification. So the intuition is very simple. So if you have, say for example, 3 classes like primary inbox, social media and promotion tabs. Say you have 3 classes. For each of the classes, we will estimate a score value. So some values that we will estimate. And then what we have to do is these score values will be transformed to probabilities. So the score values will be transformed to probability values. And these probability values are used to make the final class decision. So for every class, we will have a score, and that score will be transformed into a probability distribution value. And we pick that class for which the probability value is high. So this is a very simple steps to follow. And now let us try to understand how do we estimate the score, how do we transform that score to probability, and then we make this decision. So estimating the score and transforming the score to a probability is essentially what the softmax is trying to do, the softmax function. So let us take the example of an email where we wanted to classify it into one of the 3 classes like primary inbox, social media and promotion. Let us assume that. So we have our email. This X is our email. This X1, X2, X3 up to Xn are some n unique words from our email. So we will not be using all the words present in an email. We will only be picking some unique words from the email which we call as features. So X1, X2, X3 are features, and if there are some unique words cannot go as input to the model. So what we will do is we will have some numeric representation for those words. The simplest way is you put all the words in your English vocabulary in an array, then the index corresponding to that word can be a numeric representation of the word. So that maybe we will be using that. So we can use that and then progress. So we have a numeric representation for word. But the state-of-the-art natural language processing does not only use that index, corresponding index, but they use something called word embedding, which is another level of representation learning for words. That is just a side note here. So now what we have to do, we have to classify our input into one of the 3 classes. Let us assume this is our primary inbox, what we call as K0. K1 is the social media tab. K2 is the promotion tab. So our email, the Gmail has to make a decision where it should put it. So now when we have our training data set, we would have had several emails that belong to primary inbox, several emails that belong to social media tab, and several emails belonging to promotion tab. Then only we can actually learn to classify it. So during training, we should have representing emails from each of the class. So that is how we can train it. And we will be learning a set of theta values corresponding to each of these classes. So this is learned from the training data set. So let us assume this theta K0 as the regression values. So we are obtaining the regression values here. So this is the score that is corresponding to a specific class. So we have a set of theta values that is corresponding to primary inbox. We will learn another set of theta values corresponding to social media tab, another set of theta values corresponding to promotion tab or the promotion class. So let us assume our input email is a social media email. Let us assume that is the case. But now we are going to see this scenario. So these set of theta values, when you multiply them and transform it, this is a regression value. You get some value here. And here you multiply it with these theta values, you get another regression value here. The same email, you multiply with these set of theta values, you get another score value here. This is the regression value. And so now we have 3 score values, S0, S1, S2, corresponding to each of the classes. But remember, our email should originally belong to S1. So what it will do now is, we have some score values. These are regression values. Now we need to transform these score values into probabilities. How to transform these values into probabilities? So we will first do an exponentiation of these values, S0, S1 and S2. That means you will estimate e power S0, e power S1, e power S2. After this, we will obtain a normalized score value. That is interpreted as probability. So now you take this e power S0 and you divide it by the sum of e power S0 plus e power S1 plus e power S2. This is what in the denominator. So now we are sort of normalizing this exponentiated value. So we get a value between 0 to 1. So this P is the probability that the input sample belongs to primary inbox. Likewise, you can also obtain a probability here. Take e power S1 and divide it by the same denominator, e power S0 plus e power S1, e power S2. You will get another probability value. So this is the probability that the input belongs to social media. You can apply the same thing here. E power S2 divided by e power S0 plus e power S1 plus e power S2, another probability value. This is the probability that the input belongs to promotion.
So these are 3 sets of theta, na?
These are 3 different sets of theta values, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. And these individual theta values are learning to classify the input into its corresponding classes. That is what it is trying to learn. So now why do we want to divide it by the sum, e power S0, e power S1, e power S2? Why do we want to normalize this? The reason is that once you normalize these values like this, when you add pk0, pk1 and pk2, that will be equal to 1. But individually, the value will be between 0 to 1 because it satisfies the probability distribution condition. So when you sum up all these probabilities, it will be equal to 1 and individual values will be between 0 to 1. And this function, this operation is referred to as the softmax operation. You are taking this score value, exponentiating and normalizing it, that is called softmax. So on what you are applying that softmax? You are applying that on the regression value you are obtaining here. So that is why it is referred to as softmax regression, and there is no limit to the number of classes that you can include here. So we are getting these probabilities. So what we are going to do is that you can put these in cross entropy function. So there is an extension of cross entropy where you need not consider 2 classes, but you can just sum it up over these probabilities itself, the right label as well as the associated probability. So there is an extension of cross entropy for multi-class. And we adjust the theta value such that if the input belongs to social media, we get high probability here. So in the initial case, if we didn't get high probability here, then we are not doing a good job. So using gradient descent, this theta value will be updated such that next time when an email belonging to social media comes in, it tries to make a correct prediction. So that is how, using gradient descent, we learn the best values of these theta. So initially, all these theta values will be random numbers, and using our training data set, we keep on do the training such that the correct classification gets the highest probability value. So now during an inference time, during testing, an email comes in, we estimate the probability for each of the classes, and we pick that class for which the probability value is high. If it is a promotion email coming in, we expect that the probability corresponding to promotion is high, say for example 0.7, and here it will be 0.2, it will be 0.1, because when you sum it up, it should be 1. But we expect that the probability is high for the class for the correct class. So here there is no thresholding like less than 0.5 or greater than or equal to 0.5 and so forth. Instead what we use is for which class we get the highest probability, we decide that as the class. So this is also optimized using the cross entropy function. So we minimize the uncertainties or maximize the confidence in making the right class decisions. So whatever intuition that we saw for logistic regression binary class, so that extends here as well. So mathematically, this is the regression that we get for each class k. We get a regression value and we obtain the probability by applying the softmax. So we exponentiate and we normalize with its sum of the exponential for all the classes. And the class prediction is we pick that class for which the probability is high. This is how we mathematically write it, argmax of k. We choose that k for which the probability value is high. So that is what mathematically this is read. So we can just represent it in different forms. So this is how we go ahead with solving classification problems. So now the question, how do we evaluate the model? So we have the objective function as cross entropy. We try to minimize the uncertainty by adjusting these theta values, which eventually leads to high confidence in making the class decisions. For a regression model, when we wanted to evaluate how good our model is, we used a strategy called R-square. For a regression problem, we could come up with a average model where we were averaging the height of all the participants, and then for testing data set, no matter what the weight is, we used to predict their height as the average height of the training sample. But that is not possible in a classification problem. So in a classification problem, you have multiple classes. Maybe you have 50 samples belonging to primary inbox, 50 samples belonging to social media, and another 50 belonging to promotion. There is no idea of averaging, and for the test classes, you give it as an average. It is not possible. So now how do we evaluate the performance of a classification model? So there are some metrics to do that. So to look at that evaluation, we use a concept called confusion matrix. So I will try to explain the intuition behind how do we evaluate a classification problem or a classification model based on confusion matrix. So the confusion matrix is initially developed for binary classification problems, but there are extensions of confusion matrix for multi-class. But theoretically, we do not study confusion matrix for multi-class, but the libraries do provide that functionality. But mathematically, we learn about confusion matrix using a binary classification problem. And that understanding is enough to extend it for multi-class. So let me explain what is the confusion matrix per se. So I'm going to explain it based on a two-class classification problem, 0 and 1. Let us assume this is the testing scenario. So now I have 71, 72, so 74 plus 40. So that is the total number of samples I have. So I will have 114 samples altogether. So 74 plus 40. So 114 samples altogether. And 72 samples belong to class 0 and 42 samples belongs to class 1. So that is how originally it is the case. But let us assume our model classified 71 samples correctly as class label 0, but it misclassified one sample as class label 1. Likewise, out of 42 samples, our model classified 40 of the samples as class 1 and 2 samples as class 0. So this is how we should interpret. So this is the true label here, and here is the predicted label. So in our test data, there were 72 samples which belonged to class 0, but only 71 samples were correctly classified by our model as class 0. So that is how you should understand. So here let us put an artificial example, like 0 means cat image, 1 means dog's image. So let us look at an intuitively, let us think of an artificial problem of classifying cats and dog images. So here there are 72 cat images and 42 dog images. And we, let us say we trained a classifier to classify the input as cat image or a dog image. So now what happens? 71 cat images are correctly classified. One cat image was wrongly classified as a dog image. Here, 2 dog images were wrongly classified as cat, and 40 dog images were correctly classified as dog. So this is what we interpret on the confusion matrix. So if you look at left to right diagonal, it is telling you the correct classifications of the class 0, 0, 1, 1. So dog images, cat images correctly classified, dog images correctly classified. So when you look at the right to left diagonal, this is capturing the misclassification. So 1 cat image was wrongly classified as dog, 2 dog image wrongly classified as cat. So this is the intuition. When you look at the mathematical notations for confusion matrix, we will quite often encounter these terminologies like true negative, false positive, false negative, and true positive. So these are the corresponding values here. And now the question is, what do you mean by negative and what do you mean by positive? So now when we look at left right diagonal, these are corresponding to correct classifications. And when you look at here, you have true negative and true positive. So this true term is associated here. That means it is related with correct classification. So now we need to understand what do you mean by negative and positive. Traditionally, in classification problems, say starting from perceptrons in artificial neural network. So they used to classify the labels as -1 and +1. That used to be the output classification labels. That is the kind of step function that was used in perceptrons. So I'm talking about how the initial theory developed. So machine learning researchers, when working with binary classification problems, to distinguish 2 different classes, they used to have the numbers as -1 and +1. -1 is one class, +1 is another class. So in that case, -1 belongs to cat image or cat class, +1 belongs to dog class. That is the intuition. So that is where this negative comes in. This is representing one class, that is -1 as the class, negative class. So negative class means in a binary classification problem, you have 2 classes, negative class and positive class. So you can assign negative class means cat image, positive class means dog image. So dog and cat, so negative and positive classes. So that is how this particular terminology got associated. So true negative means if you assume negative as the cat class, true negative means how many of the cat images are correctly classified. If you associate dog as the positive class, how many of the dog images are correctly classified? And that is what we see here as well. And false positive means how many of the here false positive means falsely identified as dog. Positive means dog class, so falsely identified as dog. Here negative, if you call negative as a cat class, falsely identified as cat. So that is how you should understand by negative and positive classes. So this is how then these numbers are mapped. So true negative, true positive tells you how many of the classes are correctly classified. Here it is capturing misclassification. And now we need to quantify the performance of the model based on this. So the quantification, what people did was that they first decided a class. Say for example, the positive class, they decide the positive class. That means you decide dog as the class, and now you evaluate the capability of your model to classify dog images correctly and dog images wrongly. So it will pick a positive class and it is going to evaluate how many of the positive classes are correctly classified and how many of them are wrongly classified. So that you have to capture numerically. So one metric that is used is called precision. That means it is taking true positive. That means out of 42 images, so you altogether you have 42 original samples, but what our model did was that our model predicted 41 samples as dog images. When you add these two, this column, what do you interpret? Our model estimated 41 samples as dog images. And we wanted to see out of that 41 dog images, how many dog image classifications are correct. So you need to take that fraction. So this true positive is 40. So you will put that 40 here divided by true positive plus false positive. That is 40 plus 1, 41. So you will get a fraction 40 divided by 41, and that is called precision. Our model predicted 41 images as a dog. Out of that, how many are correct? That is called precision. And now in our testing data set, we originally had 42 samples as a dog. Out of the original 42 samples, how many of the correct samples our model was able to classify? So you have to take 40 divided by 42. That is another fraction. That is called recall. So you take this row. In our testing data set, we totally had 42 dog images. How many did our model was able to correctly classify it? So that fraction 40 by 42 is called the recall. So we have two metrics here, precision and recall. Precision captures how many of the model's predictions are correct. Recall captures how many of the actual classes it was able to correctly classify. This is precision and recall. Since we have two different metrics, it is usually difficult to evaluate a model based on these two different metrics. So we need one metric that captures both these accuracies. So what statisticians came up with is to take a harmonic mean between the precision and recall, which mathematically stands for not giving any bias to precision and recall. So you take a harmonic mean between precision and recall. The harmonic mean is calculated using this, and that is referred to as F1 score. So 2 times precision times recall divided by precision plus recall. So this is nothing but harmonic mean between precision and recall. And there is a specific name which is called F1 score. So when you have two different classification models and you wanted to pick or judge which classification model is good, you have to look at the F1 score of the two models and see which model has got a higher F1 score. And we choose that model for which the F1 score is higher. So this is how we evaluate classification models. So this is very important as well. Is there any questions here in terms of confusion matrix and estimating these F1 score?
The two classification models means
Okay, so let us assume we use softmax regression for a classification. And let us assume we also used SVM for a classification. And we wanted to see whether SVM performed well or softmax regression performed well. You look at the F1 score of SVM as well as softmax. If softmax F1 score is better than SVM, then we say for this particular problem, softmax outperform SVM. Is that clear?
yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so now how do we?
Sir, may
Yeah.
I ask one question?
Yes.
How these precision, recall, F measure values are compared in the sense like if precision is higher for an algorithm, for a given algorithm, and if it is lower for a recall. I mean, if you can help us out in knowing with the help of a sample example where you get a value and you do some analysis on it. Right, if precision is high, what do we say? Is it performing better or is it not performing? How exactly, what is that we are calculating out of it?
So we are basing one particular class, say for example, the dog image, and then we are trying to estimate based on its performance in classifying the dog images. And essentially what we are looking for is a model should have both precision and recall higher. So that is the ideal case scenario that we eventually want. So now take the example where precision is lower and the recall is higher. Are you asking that? If a
Yeah,
model has low precision but high
yeah,
recall, what do we understand from that? Is it?
yes, and vice versa.
Okay. So if we put an example of 40 here, and if we say that the precision is lower, what it means is that uh, if the precision has to be lower, it means our model is wrongly classifying cat images also as dog images. More number of cat images are wrongly classified as dog image. So our model's discriminant ability is very less in terms of classifying uh, between cat and dog. So the
So,
precision is lower, but recall is higher. Let us assume this only 2 dog image is wrongly classified as cat, but maybe 50, just take some 50 from here, so 51 here. So 51 cat images are also wrongly classified as dog. But in that case, your recall will be higher, but precision is very low. What we should understand is that our model is more biased towards identifying dog images, but it has not discriminate enough to classify cat images. So that bias can be understood by looking at the high precision or low precision and high recall scenario. Is that intuition clear?
yes, sir. And how is that we are going to analyze the same case for F1 score?
So that will eventually affect the F1 score will be lower. So either the precision is low or recall is low. One of these is higher, that doesn't mean that F1 score is going to be higher. That is the reason why the harmonic mean has been taken. So mathematically that has this property. Even if one of that is more biased, the F1 score is more fair in terms of evaluating the score. So that is why we combine precision and recall and look at a unified score for making decisions. If you only based on precision or recall, we won't get an unbiased evaluation of the model. So that is why we are
So,
using F1 score.
so it is fair enough if we analyze an algorithm based on F1 score?
Yes, yes. It is fair enough. That is why we base our evaluation on F1 score. But if you wanted to further analyze the behavior of the model, you can visualize the confusion matrix, numerically look at the precision recall and try to understand what kind of bias your model has introduced and how you can go around and correct it. Maybe your data set has some issue. So these are the kind of things that you can infer.